Hi, in this video we'll see how to solve a data sufficiency question in GMAt. Now in data sufficiency questions, we have a question followed by two statements. In these two statements, some information is given. We have to tell whether this information is sufficient to answer this question or not. And then we have 5 answer choices. Now the answer choices for each data sufficiency question is same. Now let's look at these standardized answer choices. So these are the 5 answer choices for each data sufficiency question. Here option A says statement 1 alone is sufficient but statement 2 alone is not sufficient. B says statement 2 alone is sufficient but statement 1 alone is not sufficient. C is both statements together are sufficient but neither statement alone is sufficient. D is each statement alone is sufficient, and E is statement 1 and 2 together are not sufficient. Now we follow an elimination process to solve every data sufficiency question. So let's look at how to solve it. So first we look at the question. Now a few things about GMAt maths. The main focus of GMAt maths or GMAt quant is on the language. So in exam we get 2 minutes per question. So I would suggest give at least 1 minute in understanding the question. So while you are reading the question and understanding the question, don't look at the statements. Just focus on the question and find exactly what you have to find. So let's say in this case I have to find the value of x. So we go to statement 1. Now when we go to statement 1, two things can happen. It could be sufficient or it could be insufficient. Now always write your answer choices in this form. Now there is a reason behind that. Now when statement 1 is sufficient, in that case we eliminate B, C, E, because option B says statement 2 alone is sufficient, 1 is not, but here 1 is sufficient. C means statements together are sufficient but individually they are not sufficient, but here 1 is sufficient. E is that even if we combine the statements, the data is not sufficient, but here statement 1 is sufficient. If you look at the other side where 1 is insufficient, we eliminate A and D, where A means statement 1 alone is sufficient, 2 is not, but here 1 is insufficient, and D means either statement alone is sufficient, but here 1 is insufficient. Now let's look at the first case where 1 is sufficient and we have eliminated B, C and E. So from here we go to statement 2. Remember, when we go from statement 1 to statement 2, do not carry the information of statement 1 with you. Statement 1 is over now. Consider statement 2 independently. Now when we go to statement 2, two things can happen. Statement 2 could be sufficient or statement 2 could be insufficient. If statement 2 is sufficient, our answer is D. D is either statement alone is sufficient, else answer is A. A means statement 1 is sufficient but 2 is not. So this is one case. Let's look at the other case where 1 is insufficient and we eliminate A and D. From here we go to statement 2. Now when we go to statement 2, again two things can happen. Statement 2 could be sufficient or it could be insufficient. If statement 2 is sufficient, our answer is B. B says statement 2 alone is sufficient, 1 is not. Else, if statement 2 is insufficient, we eliminate option B. Now once we have eliminated option B, it means that individually statements cannot answer. So we combine statement 1 and statement 2. Now when we combine statement 1 and 2, again two things can happen. Together they could be sufficient or together they could be insufficient. So if together they are sufficient, answer is C, else answer is E. So this is the process that we follow to solve every data sufficiency question. Now let's look at some simple data sufficiency questions. First question, find the value of x. So this question is simple, we don't have to analyze much. We have to find the value of x. Write your answer choices in this form: A, D, B, C, E. Now statement 1 says product of three terms is equal to 0. So from this we can say either x minus 4 is 0, or x minus 5 is 0, or x minus 6 is 0. So here we get either x is 4, or x is 5, or x is 6. Now remember, if we get more than one answer from the statement or one value from the statement, statement is not sufficient. As in this case, we're getting three different values for x, so the statement is not sufficient. If statement 1 is not sufficient, we eliminate AD. Now let's look at second statement. Remember, statement 1 is over. Now do not carry the information of statement 1 with you. Consider statement 2 independently. Now second statement is almost the same. Product of three terms is equal to 0. So one of them is 0. So we get either x minus 1 is 0, or x minus 2 is 0, or x minus 3 is 0. So we get either x is 1, or x is 2, or x is 3. So again I can say that I'm getting more than one value from the statement, or I'm getting more than one solution from the statement. So this statement is also not sufficient. So if statement 2 is not sufficient, we eliminate option B. Next step is combine the statements. Now when we are combining, remember few things. From every statement we get some values or some solutions. So always combine the solution of two statements. Do not combine the information of the statements. For example, in this case, this is the information from statement 1, and this is the information from statement 2. So we are not combining the statements, we'll combine the solutions. So this is the solution of statement 1, and this is the solution of statement 2. Now when we combine these two solutions, we can see that no value is common. So if no value is common in these two, together they are insufficient. So if together they are insufficient, our answer is E. So this is the first scenario when we combine two statements. So there are total three scenarios. So this is the one of them, or this is the first one, where no value is common in two solutions. This is the second question. The question is almost same as question number 1 with small change. Again the question is same, we have to find the value of x. Write your answer choices the same way: A, D, B, C, E. First statement is same, product of three terms is equal to 0. So I can say either x is 1, or x is 5, or x is 6. So again I'm getting more than one value from the statement 1. So statement 1 is not sufficient, we eliminate AD. Now we go to statement 2. Again product of three terms is equal to 0. So one of them is 0. So we get either x is 1, or x is 2, or x is 3. Now in this case again I'm getting more than one value from the statement. So again second statement is not sufficient. So we eliminate B. Next we combine two statements. Now here if we combine the solutions of two statements, here one value is common. So if one value is common in two statements, together they are sufficient. So in this case answer is C. So this is the second scenario when we combine two statements. So if one value is common in two statements, together they are sufficient. Now this is the third scenario. So again almost the same question with small changes. So the question is same, we have to find the value of x. Write down answer choices the same way, A, D, B, C, E. Now first statement, same thing, product of three terms is equal to 0, so one of them is 0. So we get either x is 1 or x is 2 or x is 6. So I'm getting more than one value from the statement. This is not sufficient. We eliminate AD. Going to the second one, same thing, product of three terms equal to 0. So one of them is 0. So either x is 1 or x is 2 or x is 3. So again here I'm getting more than one value from the statement. So statement 2 is also not sufficient. So B is out. Now let's combine the statements. So if we combine the statements, or I would say we combine the solutions, here I'm getting more than one value that is common in two solutions. So 1 and 2, so x is 1 and x is 2 is common in both. So if more than one value is common in two statements, together they are insufficient. So in this case answer is E. So this is the first type of question where you have to find the value of something. Now there is another type of question that we get in DS. So these are true false question or yes no question. Like in this case it's very simple one. Is x greater than 5? So either I'll get answer as yes or answer as no, depending on the information from the statements. So remember, in this case, if the statement says yes, statement is sufficient. Even if the statement says no, then also the statement is sufficient. So let's write down A, D, B, C, E. Question is simple, is x greater than 5? So let's get first statement. It says x is equal to 7. So we ask, is 7 greater than 5? Answer is yes. So we're getting a definite yes from statement 1. So statement 1 is sufficient. So if 1 is sufficient, we eliminate B, C, E. Now we go to second statement. X is equal to 3. The question is same, is x greater than 5? So now we ask, is 3 greater than 5? Here the answer is no, 3 is not greater than 5. So this statement is also sufficient because we are getting a definite no from the statement. So if second statement is sufficient, our answer is D, which means either statement alone is sufficient. Let's look at another scenario. Almost a similar question. The question is same, is x greater than 5? Let's write down our answer choices, A, D, B, C, E. Now we go to statement 1. It says x is greater than 2. That means x can take any value greater than 2. So let's look at the possibilities. So you can say x could be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and so on. So x can take different values. So let's check this with the question. Let's say x is 3. So is 3 greater than 5? Answer is no. Now x can be 6 also. So we ask, is 6 greater than 5? We say yes. So we can see from statement 1, for some values we are getting yes and for some values we are getting no. In this scenario, statement is not sufficient because from the same statement we are getting yes as well as no. So if one is not sufficient, we eliminate AD. Let's look at second statement. X is less than 3. That means x can take any value less than 3. So it could be 2, 1, 0, minus 1, minus 2 and so on. So let's say x is 2. So we ask, is 2 greater than 5? Answer is no. If I take x as, let's say, minus 1, is minus 1 greater than 5? Answer is no. So you can see that for all the values I'll get a consistent no. So in this case statement 2 is sufficient because we are getting a consistent answer. Here we do not look at how many values we are getting. Here we look whether we are getting consistent yes or consistent no. So from second statement I'm getting consistent no for all the values. So second statement is sufficient. So in this case our answer is B. So these are the only scenarios you can come across in data sufficiency question. Topics can change, but the way we answer them will not change. Thank you.